I want to tell you about something that happened to me that I have thought about more times than I can count. I was saying goodbye to someone. Nothing dramatic, the end of an ordinary evening, and he hugged me. Not the kind of hug that most men give, the brief, slightly awkward, one-armed thing that is really just a socially acceptable way of ending a conversation. He hugged me the way someone holds something they are genuinely glad to have in their arms, fully, warmly, without rushing toward the end of it, and something happened in me in those seconds that I was completely unprepared for. My entire nervous system, which had been running at its normal low-level hum of alertness and self-monitoring, went quiet, just quiet, like a room after a sound you did not know was bothering you finally stops. And in that quiet, I felt something I did not have a word for at the time, but have since found the words for. I felt safe. Not physically safe. Safe in a way that is much rarer and much more significant than physical safety. Safe in the way you feel when you are with someone who is completely present, completely genuine, and completely unbothered by the need for the moment to be anything other than exactly what it is. I thought about that hug for days. I still think about it now. Not because it was romantic. Not because of what it led to or what it meant about where things were going. Because of what it was in itself, a moment of genuine human contact so complete and so unhurried that it reached something in me that most interactions never touch. And I want to give you the understanding of what created that, because it was not an accident, it was not luck, it was not chemistry that cannot be understood or replicated. It was something specific, something learnable, something that has everything to do with what a man brings to a hug and almost nothing to do with the mechanics of how he executes it. But before I get to that, I need to say something clearly because this topic gets handled badly in almost every piece of content that touches it. The 6 seconds is real. The research behind it is real. Studies on physical contact and oxytocin release consistently show that sustained contact of around 6 seconds or more produces a measurably different neurochemical response than brief contact. The warmth, the sense of safety, the feeling of genuine connection that a longer-held hug creates is not subjective or imaginary. It is biological. It is happening in her nervous system, whether she names it or not. But here is what those studies do not tell you and what no list of hug techniques will ever give you. The 6 seconds only works if the man holding her for those 6 seconds is actually there for them. And most men, even men who know about the research, are not. They are counting. They are executing. They are performing a duration rather than inhabiting a moment. And she feels the difference between those two things with a precision that would astonish you if you could see it from the inside. So here is what I want to give you today. Not a technique. The understanding that makes the technique true. The specific qualities that have to be present in the man giving the hug before the 6 seconds becomes what the research says it can be. And I am going to give you this from the inside. As a woman who has been on the receiving end of both kinds of hug and knows exactly what distinguishes them. The first quality is stillness. And I want to be very precise about what I mean because stillness is not the same as being motionless. It is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of urgency. Most hugs men give, even the ones that last the right amount of time, have a low-level restlessness in them. A quality of waiting for the hug to be over that expresses itself as a slight tension in the arms, a readiness in the body to release, a monitoring for the signal that the appropriate duration has been reached and the contact can end. Women feel this restlessness the way you feel someone shifting in their seat beside you in the dark. You cannot see it. You feel it. And it tells you that the person holding you is not fully in the hug. Part of them is already past it, already in the moment after it ends. And that partial presence, that divided attention, even in a moment of physical closeness, is what makes so many hugs feel like gestures rather than contact. Stillness is different. Stillness is what happens when a man holds someone without any part of him already preparing to stop holding them. When his arms are fully there, not checking the duration, not waiting for permission to release, not monitoring her body for signs that she is ready to pull back. When the 6 seconds is not being counted but being inhabited. And the extraordinary thing about genuine stillness in a hug is that a woman's nervous system registers it immediately and responds to it immediately. The monitoring stops. The alertness drops. The low-level assessment of the interaction that runs continuously in the background of most social contact simply ceases because there is nothing to assess. The man holding her is completely there, and completely there is the most disarming thing one person can be for another. The second quality is warmth without need, and this distinction is subtle, but it is everything. There are 2 kinds of warmth in physical contact, and they feel completely different from the receiving end. The first kind is warmth that wants something. It is the warmth of contact that is trying to create a particular response, to produce a particular feeling, to move the interaction in a particular direction. It is generous in its expression, but underneath the generosity is a direction, a goal, a destination the contact is trying to reach. And women feel that directionality the way they feel any ambient pressure. Warmly delivered but unmistakably present. The hug is for them in theory, but it is also for something in practice. And that's something, that hidden agenda underneath the warmth, prevents full reception. She receives the warmth, but also the pressure behind it, and the two together produce a muted version of what genuine warmth could have created. The second kind is warmth without need. It is contact that offers everything and wants nothing. That is warm because the man giving it is genuinely glad to have this person in his arms in this moment, and that gladness needs no particular response to be complete. He is not holding her to produce a feeling in her. He is holding her because holding her is, in this moment, exactly what he wants to be doing. And that purity of intention, that warmth that arrives with no invoice attached, lands in a completely different place in her experience. It lands as a gift, a genuine one, the kind that creates not just warmth in return, but a specific quality of safety that only arrives when you are with someone who genuinely wants nothing from you except your presence. The third quality is release that comes from her. This one surprises most men when I describe it, and then immediately makes sense. In most hugs, the man decides when it ends. He releases first, or he creates the subtle muscular shift that signals he is about to release, which prompts her to release simultaneously. And in doing that, in being the one who decides the duration, he removes from her the experience of choosing to stay. She never has the chance to decide whether she wants more time in the hug because the hug ends before she has had to make that choice. And that removed choice, that small but significant absence of her agency in the moment of contact, is part of why so many hugs feel pleasant but not remarkable. She was held. She did not choose to stay. When a man holds someone with genuine stillness and genuine warmth without need and simply stays without signaling an intention to release, something very specific happens in the woman he is holding. She becomes aware that the hug is not ending yet, not because she is being held past her comfort, because there is no urgency in his arms that would signal it is time to separate. And in that awareness, in that moment of realizing the hug is continuing, not because it has not reached its duration, but because neither of them has moved toward ending it, she makes a choice. She stays. She settles more fully into the contact. She lets her body relax in a way it had been holding back. And that settling, that specific physical expression of a woman choosing to remain rather than being held in place, is what transforms a hug from something that happens to her into something she is fully part of. And a hug she is fully part of is the one she will remember, not because of what it lasted, because of what she chose within it. These three qualities together, stillness, warmth without need, and release that comes from her, are the actual content of a 6-second hug that she will not want to let go of. Not the duration, not the pressure, not the placement of hands or the angle of contact. What she will not want to let go of is a man who was completely there for every second of it, who wanted nothing except to be where he was, and who gave her the space to choose to stay. That man does not need to know how long to hold her, because when he holds her, time organizes itself around the quality of his presence rather than around any count he is keeping. And now I want to tell you what to actually do, because everything I have described is true, and it is the foundation of everything. But I also know that a man standing at the end of an evening, wanting to get this right, needs something more concrete than 3 qualities and a philosophy. So let me give you the practice, not as a sequence of steps to execute, but as a description of what those 3 qualities look like when they arrive in a real moment. Before the hug begins, slow down, not visibly, not in a way that makes the moment feel deliberate or staged, simply internally. Take one breath that is slightly longer than your normal breath and let your body settle into itself. This single act does something measurable to your physical presence. The low-level tension that accumulates in the body during social interaction, the slight readiness, the ambient alertness, releases enough that the person you are about to hold will feel the difference between your arms before and your arms after that breath. She will not know why you feel different. She will feel that you do. And that difference, that quality of a body that has released its urgency before making contact, is the physical expression of everything I described as stillness. When you open your arms, open them fully, not halfway. not with the slight hesitation of a man who is not entirely sure the hug will be welcomed, fully and without apology, because a full and unapologetic offer of contact communicates something before any physical connection has been made. It communicates that you are genuinely glad she is there, that this moment of contact is something you are moving toward rather than something you are performing because the social situation requires it. And she reads that communication in the quality of the gesture before your arms have touched her. When she comes into the hug, let her arrive fully before you hold. This is a timing detail that most men never think about, but that women feel every time. Most men close the embrace at the moment of first contact, tightening their arms as soon as she is close enough to hold. But first contact is not the same as her having fully arrived. There is a moment, a brief settling that happens when someone moves into a hug, where their body is finding its position, their arms are placing themselves, their weight is distributing. If you close the embrace during that settling, she experiences the hold as something that captured her mid-arrival rather than something that received her once she was there. It is a small difference. It is a felt one. Let her arrive. Feel the moment when her body has settled and her weight has distributed and she is fully present in the contact. And then hold. Hold with your whole body, not just your arms. This means your chest is present, your breathing is unhurried, your feet are planted rather than already angled toward departure. It means that the contact is not being administered from a slight distance by arms that are the only part of you that showed up. You are there, all of you, in this moment, with this person. And the full body quality of that presence is what she will feel as being held rather than being hugged. There is a difference between those two things that every woman knows from the inside and almost no man has ever been taught to understand. Do not speak, not immediately. The instinct in most men is to fill the silence of a hug with words. A murmured something, a light comment, a question about when they will see each other next. Resist this instinct completely. Words during a hug are almost always an expression of discomfort with the intimacy of the moment, a way of making the contact feel lighter and safer and more social than it actually is. But the intimacy of the moment is not a problem to be managed. It is the point. The silence inside a hug is where the actual contact happens, not skin to skin, person to person. And words interrupt that contact the way turning on a light interrupts a dream. The moment may continue technically, but something essential in it has ended. When the hug begins to find its natural completion, you will feel it. Not because you have reached a count, but because the quality of the contact shifts slightly. Her body will give a signal, almost imperceptible, a very slight change in the quality of her weight or the tension in her arms, that the moment is complete. Wait for that signal. Do not anticipate it. Do not create it by beginning to release before it arrives. Simply stay present enough to feel it when it comes. And when it comes, release gradually, not all at once, the way a conversation ends, with a natural diminuendo rather than a sudden stop. Let the contact reduce rather than terminate. And as you separate, let your hands be the last thing to release. A brief moment of hand contact at the end of a hug, arms released but hands still present for one more second, creates a specific felt sense of the contact extending itself rather than ending. She does not move from held to not held. She moves from held to accompanied. And that transition, that graceful reduction of contact rather than its sudden termination, is what she will replay in the quiet of her own mind later, not the hug as a whole, that last moment of it. The moment when your hands stayed 1 second longer than they needed to and said without words, "I was genuinely glad to be there." You are not learning a technique. You are practicing a quality of presence that will express itself through the hug and through everything else. A man who can be fully still, fully warm without need, and fully present to another person's experience of leaving his arms is a man whose contact leaves an impression that no amount of charm or conversation or strategic timing can manufacture. She will not remember the 6 seconds. She will remember what the 6 seconds told her about you, that you were somewhere real, that she was held by someone who was actually there, and that she chose, in the quiet of that contact, to stay a moment longer than she had planned. Because something about being there felt, for those seconds, like exactly where she wanted to be. It is never too late to give someone that. Start tonight.